The first rule in grip sport is you tell everyone about grip sport.
Crushing, pinch grip, thick bar, wrists.
If the best guy in the world can't lift 100 pounds on it, I don't give a shit about it.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Grip Show, everybody. And I have Sebastian with me here. So, you recently hosted the Maritimes Regional Championship in Canada. But I want to get into, I just want to bring up one thing real quick, because this is something I think I've mentioned on the show. I'm going to have you verify it for me just in case. But you pulled double body weight on Iron Mind axle and Andrew's axle, correct?
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah, two different competitions, but yeah.
Yeah. I think you, yeah. Well, yeah, not the same day, but I think you're the only person that's ever done that, actually. I don't know if anybody else has pulled double body weight on Andrew's axle. So I think that's the first time that was done. But yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I know I've said it a couple times. So I'm pretty sure it was Andrew's axle and this. So it's kind of a cool fact to bring up. But yeah, if anybody's tuned into the recap of Stronghold 3 up in Maine, you did that one. There was another competition up in Canada.
Yeah, it was Canadian Nationals that we did the.
Okay.
Yeah, we did Canadian Nationals, had the Andrews axle.
Okay. Yeah, so you've done Canadian Nationals. Really, I feel like this is really kind of like your first year competing within grip, right? I mean, from a
last year
standpoint?
I got my first competition was last year, like March or so, at Sports City Grip Wars in St. John, New Brunswick.
Okay. Yeah. So really, I mean, just about, doing it for, well, yeah, I said that's pretty much in that timeline. So, but yeah, a lot of big lifts out the gate. And what exactly is your background? Just curious, like, as far as how'd you kind of get into it? Or what were you doing prior? Climbing? Yeah. That's like, seems like everybody up in Canada right now that does grip, other than maybe Trey. Well, then Trey went and started climbing too, though.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So.
Yeah, I see him post videos all the time of him climbing now. So yeah, I've been climbing since university, and then I was watching one of my climbing YouTubers, Emil Abramson, and he went to a competition. So then I just Googled it, and there was one in St. John like 3 weeks later. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna try it out too. And that's the whole start.
What did you what did you think kind of rolling in there for the first time, and how did that event go? Just curious.
It went well. I think actually my the first event that I did was the Saxon bar, 2x5 Saxon bar, and I set the world record as my first thing, which was very unexpected. I didn't even know what the records were, but it was very cool because there's lots of like strong men there. So I was in there like one of the lightest guys, just picking up random things off the ground, and it was kind of like climbing, because climbing we do a lot of training that's off the wall too, where you're just like picking an edge lift up off the ground. I liked it. Yeah, it was very fun.
And then as far as body weight, what's your body weight at, like, kind of like right now? I'm only saying that because I feel like you've maybe kind of shifted between some classes potentially.
Yeah, so normally I sit like morning weight would be like high 160s. So it's like easy for me to cut down to like the 74 kg class for GSI. But for the Olympia, I'll do 80. So I don't have to cut anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
And not to get too crazy and go off on a tangent, but do you know who you're competing against at the Olympia by chance? Any idea of the roster?
I do not.
Okay.
No. I think
no
Steve
worries.
Gaspar is going for sure. I don't know anyone else.
Yeah. Climber versus climber.
Yeah.
But I guess you run into that probably a little more frequently now in the lighter weight classes. I don't know. I mean, I really feel like looking back, years ago, not saying there wasn't climbers. There have almost always been some type of, climbers involved within the sport. But the presence of climbers right now, particularly in the like women's classes in the lower weight, like men's, is like insane. I feel like it's almost like the biggest demographic that's kind of like rolling in and really making an impact. So I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. I think we're going to keep seeing people that already have that conditioning build up in their hand and that strength. They're going to just keep I don't know.
I think it's a bit of there's a big carryover from climbing too, because it would be probably like the last 5 or 6 years that climbers have got into actually floor lifting instead of like doing stuff on a hangboard or just like climbing on the wall. So like even some of the climbing companies are putting out like this one is selling a wrist wrench now, right? So it's very much crossing over into grip sport stuff.
It is a good point to bring up, though, and I'm not familiar with that as much because I'm not a climber, so I don't know. Yeah. What that training I guess what the training climate is like, or what the trends are, what people are doing, or what is going on there. But we always think about, I guess, within grip, oh, the climbers are coming over and doing this. I've never really thought about it from like a, hey, climbers are also, I mean, I know
Yeah, it's
climbers are
cool.
doing strength training, but you don't think about it maybe carrying over to that as well as much. I always think like, oh, their climbing carries over to this sport, but maybe there's some climbers that have found benefits, on the grip sport side too,
Yeah,
which
it's
I'm
going both ways
sure
for sure.
there's several. So, um, but yeah, so I just want to touch on some of those things and just was curious. So we can get into the regional championship that you hosted for the Maritimes region. And after doing some competitions and kind of being around, the nationals, like you mentioned, getting some comps under your belt, how did you feel, or what was kind of the motivating factor to take on hosting an event?
Eric was the motivating factor.
Oh
He sent
man.
me a message and asked if
Yeah.
if I'd be willing to host one, and I didn't even know what would go into it, so I just asked him a bunch of questions. He was very like supportive. It's answered everything, and then I reached out to our climbing gym, and they were like, "Sure, that sounds great." So had a venue, I had direction, I had guidance, and then just kind of all came together. And I also just bought my first grip implements at the same time as he reached out, so I
Oh
actually had things that I could contest, whereas before I was
yeah.
training on just like 2x4s and PPC pipe and stuff. So I got, like I said, a knee pump, nightmare stuff, and a few other things.
Yeah, no, it's always interesting because like I feel most people go through that. Sometimes people just start off right away with everything, but yeah, I mean for the longest time I was like lifting on, we're lifting on stuff that's maybe not sanctioned, not tracked, but you're kind of mimicking it. You're first getting into it. You don't really know what it's all about, or maybe it's just something's not available or whatever the case is.
Yeah,
So I've definitely I went through that phase early on with some things, but it is nice when you like look at a competition and you're like, oh, I have a couple of those handles. I can train like specifically for it, or if I have to host like multi-venue, I'm able to host a venue, or
you could actually put it
so
on.
it does kind of open some of that stuff up. What events did you choose going into it, and was there any particular reason for whatever event lineup you went with?
Yeah, so I picked 4 events. Figured that was an easy number to manage, just to get through everyone. And I kind of picked 2 heavier ones and 2 light ones. So I picked for the heavier ones, I picked the Napalm Nightmare 2-inch pinch, 2-handed 2-inch pinch, and then the one-handed 2-inch rolling handle, Napalm Nightmare.
Mhm.
And then for the 2 lighter ones, I picked the wrist wrench and then the mini inch pinch. So I picked the wrist wrench and the mini inch pinch because those are 2 of the ones that they were competing at the Central Canada regionals. So I thought it'd be cool to have some crossover, do some comparison with how they are doing over there, how we're doing, and then a little bit for just prep for the Olympia because we're doing the Saxon bar and we're doing
Mhm.
the other 2-inch rolling handle. So yeah, just a little bit
Mhm.
of prep for that too.
No, it's smart. It's something that I mean, a lot of people do it where they kind of, we've seen it with like, oh, King Kong's coming up, and then somebody will kind of like, oh, well, we're gonna have like 4 or 5 events, but a couple of them are gonna be the same as King Kong or something that's close enough to where you're not trying to like train 12 different things at once. You can kind of just kind of lump them together or kind of meet in the middle somewhere. Um,
Yeah.
but that totally makes sense. And then as far as, I mean, you said you had the venue, you're getting stuff set up. Did you have anybody like help you as far as like plate loading or any of that? Did you kind of like delegate that out, or were you kind of just like a one-man show?
No, I definitely had a lot of help from the guys who run Port City Grip Boards. So Adam
Okay.
Dixon and Derek Bryan. So they came up and yeah, they helped me with all the plate loading and everything. So I was kind of the man behind the keyboard running the spreadsheets, and then they were doing the plate loading and weighing everything and making sure it was all official.
Okay.
So
No, that's
big
good.
thanks to them because otherwise it would have been much more
Eh,
challenging.
Yeah, no, it's a good way to do it that way. I mean, just I haven't like hosted anything in quite a while myself, but yeah, if you are in charge of something, the more help you can get ahead of time, the better it is. Just makes it easier,
Yeah,
especially if you're competing as well. That's the other part of it.
yeah.
But yeah, so I guess when the competition gets rolling, or I guess maybe I'll just talk about like the turnout. So as it gets close to that date, are people already committed to it, or are you kind of unsure of how many are showing up? And then what was that kind of like?
Yeah, so I put on like a an intro clinic at the climbing wall like a week before, just so people can come, like new people can come and try things out and see how it was. I think I had like 20 people show up to that, so I was psyched that lots of people were showing interest. We didn't have a lot of registrations beforehand. It was all like word of mouth. People were like asking me details and like saying they were coming, but no one actually signed up online because that part was through the gym. But I kind of, in the back of my mind, I knew that like, oh, we'll probably have a pretty good turnout just based on who I talked to.
Yeah.
That weekend that the competition was, though, it was also like an outdoor climbing festival kind of thing. So I know that a lot of the climbers kind of would be away for that too. So it was competing interests. But no, we had a ton of people show up from the climbing team. So we ended up having 25 people, 19 men and 6 women. And our youngest was 12, I think, and then the oldest was 62. So we had a kind of a good spread across the age range.
Wow.
Yeah. And I had lots of people reach out and said that like, if you do this again next year, I'll come join. I just couldn't do it that weekend. So it seems like people are psyched about it in New Brunswick Maritime.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to get too far ahead, but yeah, does that mean you're intending on hosting next year as well?
I haven't talked to Eric or anyone, but like the gym wants to, and everyone came up to me afterwards and said that they'd be up for
unless
it.
somebody else is like really, really diehard on hosting it and they put together some kind of like plan or proposal to outdo you. I'd say you'll probably be good to go on that. No, but that's awesome that you got that kind of participation, and it is a good thing too that you kind of gave everybody a little bit of an intro, or at least had that. You're kind of promoting the event, so to speak. I mean, you're introducing them to the equipment, but you're also like, hey, if you want to test it out, come back this day, we'll be actually competing or whatever, So that's a tough thing to do. It's one thing to like just, I don't say it's like a party trick or just like having fun, but you can like throw a block down around a climbing wall and be like, hey, try this. And people will have fun with it all day, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee that 25 people are going to roll in and like, hey, be here this time for a weigh-in and, and whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm glad it worked out the way it did. And anytime, like I said, first time promoting a competition and getting 25 people, that's really good. I mean, there's people that have been in the sport for a decade and probably never got 25 people in one room together, so good start. And hopefully it continues. So if you wanted to kind of get into, I guess, really just the action highlights of the competition, is there anything that stood out? We don't have to go like, event win by event win or lift by lift, but just any like impressive lifts, anything noteworthy that happened or surprised you, and you can kind of just, like I said, just sort of speak on the competition as it went.
Yeah. I think I think it was like a very different competition in that we had like the most people in the lightest weight classes, given that it was at the climbing gym. So like I think like our biggest group would have been like, we had more people under 74, like all the way down to under 59 for men, than we did above 74, which is like the flip that you'd find at most competitions. And the same thing for women. We had a ton that were like in the under 57, under 62 category, which is very cool. And it was nice too, because there's not so many records set in that class. That really motivated people. I printed out all the records for all the different weight classes, and I had them on a wall there, so they were all psyched and trying to outdo each other and try to set a new record. So I think we ended up setting 15 new GSI class records at the competition, awesome. Which was super cool. Yeah.
Moving forward, it also makes it really good for those lighter classes that maybe weren't, they didn't have as much participation before. Now it really gives like the 59, or, if we're talking like women's, I think it's 57, but you're basically talking from that range up to the 74 kilo where, maybe, oh man, only 5 people in my class did that handle or something. Now you could actually look at it and say, hey, it's filled out more. Everybody kind of knows where they stand, and it also pushes things forward in the for future competition. So that's actually a huge positive there. Just being able to get that, lighter climbing demographic in there to just bigger sample size for each, contest implement or whatever the case may be. And when people start getting close, also, I think they get addicted to it sometimes too, where they're like, oh man, I had a class record, but I dropped it. Or I was only 10 pounds off, but this is my first competition. I'll come back in 3 months and break that. So I think it's a good motivator that way. Were you seeing much of that from anybody? Maybe people that were close or people that were like, man, I broke it. Well,
Oh
how high
yeah,
can I take this? Okay. Yeah. I
yeah.
figured
Or
that's probably what was happening.
we'd have people in the same class who one of them would break it, and then the next person would jump up and wait because they still had a tenth left, and they'd re-break it. So they were like even competing back and forth, like in
Yeah.
the same one. But people, yeah, they were getting serious into it. Like one person even skipped one of the events because she really wanted to PR in the next one and set the record, and she ended up doing it. So
Oh,
props to
wow.
her for doing that. Yeah.
What event was it? Do you remember off the top of your head? What it was?
Let me see here. It was Emily Connor set it for which one? She skipped. Which one? I think she set it for the Napalm Nightmare, the 2-inch pinch. So she had skipped like the wrist wrenches right before it or something like that. She
Oh,
wanted to
okay.
rest up for the.
I was just curious what they skipped and what they lifted on.
Yeah.
Because I'm only joking when I say this, but if somebody's like, I have to skip the 2-inch Napalm Nightmare rolling handles because I have to set the mini inch pinch record, I was going to be like, I don't know if you had to
Yeah,
skip
yeah,
that
yeah.
way. I'm just joking, but yeah, like I was just curious what the event was. But no,
Yeah.
that's
Actually,
awesome to hear. Yeah. I'll keep going. Yeah, you're good.
well, I was just gonna say, like, actually think it was the 2-inch rolling handle for the wrist wrench because there would be some carryover with the wrist action
Oh,
for the two. So it was a very
yeah.
like strategic decision from on their part. But yeah, but no, yeah. So everyone like before the competition, they're all asking me for the records, and that's why I ended up printing them out because I was tired of answering their questions and directing them back to the
Mhm.
GSI site to see what everything was. But when I did that demo thing, they all came in and they were asking about the records and trying things out and like, oh yes, I just broke that unofficially, and they're all cheering for
Yeah.
each other and getting super psyched there. Um, yeah, so like one of the friends I've been climbing with for since I started climbing 15 years ago, Sean Fairweather, he set new class record in all four of the events in the 59 men's 59 kg categories. That was super impressive to see. Um, and then Annie McCaskill, she's the women's overall champion. Again, she
Yeah.
set I think 3 records, and Eric ranked her. Now she's in the top 10 for the women's 63 North American top 10 leaderboard. That's again super cool. She seems, yeah, she's very quiet, but like you can tell, like when she had big lifts, she get like that really psyched kind of internal motivation. So that was nice to see.
Yeah.
Come out of the shell a bit when you get a big lift in. Yeah, and I think, well, actually, one of the competitors was my father-in-law. I convinced him to come out for it, so he was the 62, and he'd
You did
never
win,
like
right?
wait.
You
I
did win
won,
the.
yes, I
Okay, I'm
won.
just making. Well, I'm messing around. I know that you won the men's overall for the region, but yeah, more so just head to head. You at least you got the win there, right?
Yeah, so I won all 4 of the events,
Clean
and then
sweep.
Derek
Okay.
came clean sweep. Yeah, yeah. So it's like that. um, and then Derek Bryan, one of the guys from Port City Grip Wars, he came in second, and then a climber from Nova Scotia came in third, Gus Lawrence.
Okay. Yeah.
And
I
this was
remember
Gus's
seeing.
first competition.
Okay. Yeah, I know you said probably a lot of people was probably their first time. I know not
Yeah,
everybody, but yeah, a lot of first time competitors and particularly like you said, lower weight classes. So man, I don't know. Like I said, it's interesting to see how this year's gone with the sport because there's been a lot of newer competitions held, but a lot of new people. And I'm just judging off what I hear on the show. And when I'm covering events like this, I'm talking to the host, I'm talking to the promoter, and they're pretty much telling me all this good stuff, these great turnouts, but I don't want to like set the bar too high for people next year, but it seems like there's going to be a lot of like retention where people are coming back and it's not like they're, oh, one and done or I tried it but didn't care. It seems like most of the people are pretty interested and assuming some of the same venues or same hosts or the same kind of effort gets put into it. I see it almost just growing really. I mean, like I said, I don't want to get too far ahead, but this year's I've been really impressed with the regionals for GSI because when it first was like an idea getting put together, I was thinking, this is going to be a bunch of like, you know, 6 to 8, 6 to 10 people competitions, and it's all going to be kind of, just
yeah.
small, like little get-togethers. And then I think every regionals that I've done an interview for is like over 20 people. I don't think I've done one. This might be the fifth or sixth one I've recapped, and I think everybody's like 20 plus or some even like 30 or more.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's
yeah.
it's been really impressive, and it doesn't seem like anybody's like, half the crowd didn't really care for it, and they'll probably just stick to everybody seems to think that people are going to kind of stick around and spread the word a little bit. So um, that couldn't be done without lifters like yourself, and kind of putting that stuff out there and presenting that in a way that gets the people to come out. So uh, not only congrats on winning and being the overall champ for the region, but successfully hosting a competition like that and kind of setting the bar high for the first regional championship that was held in that region. You know what I mean? It's the first time that the regionals have been contested in this way, or as much attention's been placed on them. And yeah, like I said, it wouldn't have the same impact if it was like, oh yeah, four buddies came over and lifted in the garage. And when you have these better venues with 20, 30 people showing up, and there's no sign telling you that there's not going to be that many or more the next time. Yeah, I think it's really up in the competition level and really growing the sport in a pretty natural way, I guess is what I would say. So,
And I think
yeah.
I think the interest is there. It's just like spreading the word. Like the people that I talked to, they didn't even know what it was until I like sent out that post and was like talking to people like face to face. Like people hadn't heard of grip sport at all, really. So it's really cool if like to see how many people would come out if they just knew, if there was just more widespread information.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with that one. And Canada already has. I know I've mentioned this with probably I think maybe talking to the Nemesis crew, one of the last recaps I did, or one of the last two, and yeah, just talking about getting the word out there like that and how many people are actually showing up. I don't know. I think it's really taken off, and it is just a matter of putting it in front of people. And I just think that it is an interesting sport, and I don't know what has maybe, I don't want to say caused it to grow slower in the past, but I don't know. Now I just think there's more people that are kind of taking on the role of host, and more competitions and more regions. And I think the lifters and hosts themselves are doing a better job of kind of spreading the word and kind of getting people on board. Whereas before, I think it was kind of, I don't say a little more closed off, but I just think that it wasn't as accessible, or it might be, I got to drive 6 hours to go to that place. And now it's like, oh, well, hey, I'm going to host one in this
Yeah.
region. So I think some of that has also helped, but it's just been cool to
That
see.
was it for me. Yeah, like I would never have gotten into it if it wasn't the Port City guys. Like I saw the video on YouTube, and then I saw that they were hosting the competition. If they hadn't hosted that, like I wouldn't have driven 4 hours for my first competition or whatever. So that just again, have the
Yeah.
accessibility of having them in local.
No, I think that's really a good, and that's kind of the point of the regionals, is to add that structure going to nationals and then North Americans. But yeah, I just think it's a little more organized now. And it's not like when I first was trying to do King Kong, like I think the first year, I don't even think I'd competed yet, but I was just looking at venues. And I think from where I used to live, I was like, oh, I could drive like 6 or 8 hours. I think it was like 8 hours to like somewhere in Tennessee, or I could drive
Yeah,
like 9+ hours to Jed, or I don't even know if anybody further south was even hosting back then. So I was looking at it kind of like, okay. And then I'm looking at my stuff in the garage, like I only have 2 out of 4 or 1 out of 4. Like, then I've never even
yeah,
competed. Would I want to host one my first time and I've never even competed? Like, I'm not doing King Kong this year. So I was probably just hanging out in my garage trying to, lift on the similar stuff and kind of see where I was before I actually, jumped into the sport.
yeah.
But yeah, had there been one, that close, yeah, maybe I would have started competing even earlier than I did. So definitely a good thing. So as far as the events go, I know you said there's 15 class records that were set. So I mean, we don't have to like read every single one off and all that. Are there any
Yeah.
other big kind of highlights, or maybe something that happened at the competition, or things I don't know that maybe lifters did moving forward that hey, they set this record, but now they're turning their eyes on this one, or I don't know. I'm just digging for any extra info.
Yeah. Well, so I had so I set 3 out of the 4 records for myself. The one that I missed was the 2-inch pinch napalm nightmare. So in the competition I did 245, but I in training, like 4 days before that, I had done 256. And then just kind of the hecticness of the competition, I didn't get the proper warm up in and did too big of a jump and then dropped it. So I think, yeah, the next time I'm able to compete that, I'm hoping to really push up the bar for that one. So that'll be, yeah, looking forward to doing that.
Do you remember who has that record? I mean, is it 83? Is it 83 or 74 that you competed in?
74.
74.
74. So, yeah. So actually, I think Will Reed had it at 231. And then at Canadian Nationals, I hit 230.8 or something. I was like half a pound from breaking it then. And then Ben Galper just set it to 255 at some Hercules competition or something in September. So then I was hoping to break it again. And like I said, I broke it in training and then didn't quite do it on the day. So it's getting pushed up quickly.
Oh yeah, no, that one, and I think there's still some room there for that one. So I'll look. I bet you guys will be up there. Depending on who's contesting it and who's lifting, that'll get pushed up there. You know, once people start getting competitive and you jump this, you jump that. Next thing you know, it's like, I don't know, the record that used to stand will be like 8th or something, or get pushed out of the top 10 in a couple years. That's how it seems. Not all of them. Some records have been standing for a long time, but yeah, especially in classes that are a little bit lighter, or maybe didn't have the biggest turnouts. Now that they are getting that attention that they kind of deserve, I'd look for a lot of those records to keep climbing up. And like I said, there's a lot of good lifters. Well, I'm not looking. I think some of the West Coast guys are potentially going to do a regionals before the year ends. Also, I don't know if they'll choose that, but I know you just mentioned some California lifters there. So I don't know what they'll select, but some of those guys might compete again before the end of the year's up. But yeah, and then I know you already said it, but just to kind of reiterate, so I don't want to mess up the last name. Is it McCaskill or McCaskill?
Yeah,
McCaskill,
Annie McCaskill. Yeah.
So she was the women's overall, and I think you mentioned 50, like, or ranked in the 63 class, but was she lighter than that?
63 class. Yeah, she weighed 58.
Okay.
So she's still 63 class, but just the bottom of the 63. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So so she took the overall for that competition. You took the overall for the men's side. So you guys would be the regional champs. I just want to make sure that that's clear. You know, I'm doing a recap for regionals and whatever. So, and that information should be up like on the GSI Instagram and other stuff. I mean, it's out there. So people can always look it up or check it out. But I'd like to try to, put the information out here as well in case people don't follow certain things. But yeah, is there anything during the competition other than maybe your jumps or warming up for your own lifts, but is there anything else you would have done differently? I mean, I guess as a lifter and then also as a host of the competition.
Yeah. I think recruiting more help would have been a good thing to do because I ended up, I was thinking I was just going to I wasn't sure how many people were going to be there. So I ended up having to run 2 platforms. So it was me on the spreadsheet, keeping track of the weights for both at the same time. Luckily, again, Derek and Adam were great at trying to call them out to me, call out the lifter names as I was recording them there. But it definitely would have been better to kind of have a separate keeper for each of the platforms.
That would wear me out. Just thinking about it is going to fry my brain out.
Yeah. I just kind of go. Again, Adam and Derek did way more work. They were lifting the hundreds of pounds over and over again. But yeah, my brain was definitely a little torched by the end of the day. So I think just, a little bit more help. And then, just spreading the word even further, I think. And picking it on a weekend that maybe isn't such a climbing heavy weekend. So maybe doing it in the summer when people tend to be more inside than those perfect kind of September conditions.
No, yeah, that's a good point to bring up. And then, like I said, really that covers the competition for the most part. Is there anything, like I said, I don't want to cut it too short, but I also don't want to just force you to keep saying random stuff or whatever, having to dig for little things. So, is there anything else, I guess, in regards to the competition? Maybe the Canada grip scene, or just anything that maybe you would like to add, or I don't say address. Address makes it sound like, oh, do you want to address this? Like it's something like it's a problem or something. But no, like, is there just anything that you would like to maybe mention, or it could be anything. Could be about the competition. Could just be the Canada scene in general. Could be stuff you're looking forward to, competition wise. Just anything else to add. Like I said, I'm kind of, you know, covering most of the competition stuff,
Yeah.
and I know you probably have a schedule you're following there, so I don't want to have you miss weigh-ins or something wild because you're listening to me talk.
No, no, I've got time. um, yeah, I think so. What grip sport feels like now to me is what climbing felt like when I first got into it. So I started climbing around 2010. And back then people would ask me like, "Oh, you're a climber. Like when are you climbing Everest?" And it's like, again, very, very different things, right? Like bouldering in a gym or outside versus like mountaineering and climbing Mount Everest. But it was just the kind of the community aspect. Again, it was very like grassroots, like small communities. You kind of knew everyone. Everyone was super friendly and nice, and it really made you like feel part of the community and like makes you want to climb more and join and everything. And that's kind of what the vibe I've felt with grip sport too. Like everyone kind of is connected and knows everyone. Everyone's super inviting and like, what's that? That's the model for the show, right? Or is that Jed's line?
It
The
is.
first rule about
No,
grip sport is tell everyone about grip sport or whatever.
yeah, I can't take credit for that. I did put that in the beginning of the intro on purpose, because that was yeah, that's pretty much, that's like a classic line from Jed. Jed would say that on the old This Week in Grip episodes. So if anybody hasn't listened to those, you
Yeah.
can still go back, uh, type in, This Week in Grip, and Jed, Alan Hynek started doing that. It was like an audio only on YouTube, like podcast for grip back then. And they would basically have a show. I mean, like this, just without the video, really. It was mostly just, audio only and only on YouTube. But it's also, years ago. But that's one of the things I really enjoyed was kind of getting into listening to that and catching up on things that were maybe happening right before I joined the sport or a couple years prior to.
Yeah.
So I was kind of familiarizing myself with what was going on and memorizing names and who did what, and that was a good resource. And I do know that like it was Jed and Alan, I think mainly, but then at one point James Rederitas was brought in. I've had James on the show and lifted with him a ton in North Carolina, and then Ricardo was also on the show for a period of time. So there's a lot of different stuff in those older episodes that I don't think people have. A lot of the newer lifters definitely haven't heard or listened to. And if you get caught up on Grip Show or you don't want to listen to me talk, you go check out some of those older episodes. If you're on a long drive, and just skip the intro because Jed has the guitar turned up so loud in the beginning it might bust your eardrums or blow your speakers. But as long as you get past that loud guitar that's like volume 100 and then adjust it to what they're talking at, then you're good to go. Um, I just got to mess with Jed a little bit on that one. But no, there were some really cool episodes and a lot of interesting topics they covered. And me kind of choosing that line was in a way leading with that was I felt like that was an important thing to lead with. Jed's done a lot for the sport and kind of pay tribute to, to that show. I knew Jed wasn't going to bring it back, even though a lot of us had bugged him behind the scenes. Hey, do This Week in Grip, just update it, do this. And I just don't think Jed was in a place at the time to have the help he needed. He didn't have the help that he needed to probably run it the way he wanted to. So I kind of got talked into doing this, and here we are. I'm kind of just knocking all these episodes out. But yeah, no, This Week in Grip, that's where I first heard him say that often. And because that was, before me, I was kind of just paying tribute to that, and thought putting it in the intro was kind of a cool little, tribute. So but yeah, no, that is technically the first rule of grip sport, as Jed Johnson says. So
That to say though, like that's why I think it's a very growing community. Like it's very inclusive. Everyone's super friendly, very inviting. Like I haven't had anyone like come up to me and say like, "Oh, I didn't like that competition," or I didn't like that lift. Everyone was just psyched about everything and wanting to do more and asking about other competitions and asking about different implements and like what else is contested, what other records are there. So yeah, I think definitely a very growing community, and it's nice to like Eric runs the Canada Grip Sport website that has those lists of the top 10 in North America. It has all the records. It has those special lists of like the inch dumbbell and all that. So again, it's nice that we can kind of track that history, but also like bring new people in and add to that history.
Eric does a great job. That's another point that I think is cool you brought up, and it's not particularly competition related, but or at least like this particular contest. But Eric does have the Canada Grip Sport site. I reviewed the North American rankings recently, which are going to get shaken up here in the next month anyway, probably, or at least to close the year out, they will. So Eric has those North American rankings. Like you mentioned, there are like feats of strength that people have done that are recorded on there, different records, and yeah, Eric does a real good job.
Stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So that's another good resource, especially for Canadian competitors. And like I said, I mean the North American rankings are there also, so it's not just a Canada type deal. But if the newer like if a new Canadian climber is up there and they're finding out about it, and okay, well here's this database of this, and then well, okay, here's it's just an extra thing that is there that maybe other countries don't have someone tracking, or they don't have a website that's been put together as well as Eric has done that one. So it is good that you mentioned that, because I think that people, where are the rankings at? And it's like, well, it's on Canada Grip Sport, So, and there's more than just the rankings. I just to mention that because I covered them on an episode recently. But yeah, so someone could check out that website, particularly if they're new in Canada, or as always, the GSI database is up. Jed's newsletter for future competitions. That's generally the best way to get info for that. So yeah, if anybody's listening or tuning in and wants to kind of just seek out more information for the sport, I've kind of unintentionally covered a couple different things, from the website to the older podcast to whatever. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. So if anybody gets bored and it piques their interest, check some of the stuff that we're talking about out. Other than that, like I said, I know you said you got time, but do you feel pretty good with most everything we covered? Is there anything else before I kind of cut you loose that you'd want to mention?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. And I think, yeah, next year people are going to come back and break even more records and try to push their numbers higher.
Okay. No, I wish you the best with hosting that competition next year. And then before we start worrying about hosting next year, right? But no, so yeah, you're out in Vegas for the World Championships for arm lifting. So yeah, before you're hosting, you're going to be doing this competition coming up. So yeah, Grip Show wants to wish you, best of luck in that competition. Hopefully there's a good turnout in your weight class, and hopefully you get pushed pretty well. And like I said, hopefully you'll come out on top for that. And maybe we'll have you back on the show at some point and kind of talk about whatever else you get. Or whatever you lift in competition. Is there any goals you have particularly for this one coming up? Well, I don't want to like spoil it for people if you got competition or something tuning in, but no, like I'm gonna try. It doesn't really matter. You're gonna lift what you lift, and they will too. But yeah.
No specific numbers, but I'm open to have a good Saxon bar lift, 2-inch Saxon bar lift.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, hopefully they'll have a center line marked on that thing, and hopefully it'll be chalked up really good.
Yeah.
Hey, Sebastian, I really appreciate you coming on the show, giving us the rundown. I know it's a little, I don't say rushed, but a little bit sped up. But you've been flying, you've been traveling, you got a competition to get ready for. I don't want to take up your whole day. So, no, look forward to seeing these competition results. I will be breaking those down as well for everybody when this competition wraps up. So, yeah, until then, best of luck in the comp. And I don't know, glad to have you in Grip Sport, honestly.
Awesome.
Just, making a difference. And big lifts, impressive lifting, but then also taking it upon yourself to host and bring more people to the sport as well. So, no, it's a big deal.